Hello, future engineers. In this video tutorial, we are going to be going over how to model part 6 cow catcher inside of OnShape. So there's a couple other OnShape videos posted to the Google Classroom. So if you have questions about using OnShape, I'd recommend looking at those videos. I'm going to try and go through this one as quickly as possible because it is a little bit more complex. So I want to keep this tutorial a little bit more bare bones, which I am actively fighting against right now by talking so much. But here we go. We are going to draw out basically two different sketches and loft them together. Typically, I do not like to have an incomplete sketch or an unconsumed sketch before starting another one, but using Loft, oh boy, it's a great one. So you can see from this little preview, we are going to draw in two basically like home plate shaped sketches, and then we are going to loft between these to fill in and create our cow catcher shape. So the first one that we are going to be creating, we are going to be using this width, this height, and these edges to fill in. So it's got a width of 1.8, a height of 1.0, and then the side are 0.25. So let's get into that. I'm going to go into OnShape, and I am going to create a new part. This one I'm going to call cow catcher and click OK. So the face that we're going to be starting sketching on is our top face. So I'm going to select that and hit the pencil icon to start sketching. Two finger touch to view normal to sketch plane, and I'm going to view normal to sketch plane, and I'm also going to hit the lock so I don't accidentally rotate this. All right, I'm going to draw in my basic shape, and then I'm going to go back through and dimension it. I'm careful making sure things don't snap to each other in a way that I don't want them to snap to. I'm going to go over to dimension, and I am going to choose the two outside edges and dimension in between those at 1.8. Then I am going to dimension from that baseline to this top point over here. This dimension should be 1. The height of these lines, so from this point to our horizontal baseline, that should be 0.25. And now, with all those dimensions in place, we actually have enough where we can just use some constraints. So I'm going to highlight this line and this line and say that they are equal to each other. So I'm going to grab the equal constraint, do the same thing for the top two lines as well. So go back in here once they're selected and hit equal. Cool. That first sketch is done, so I'm going to go back to my isometric view. Now typically we would extrude out this sketch, but because we want to loft between these two different shapes, we're going to keep that there. I am going to turn off my origin, my front plane, and my right plane just to make it a little bit cleaner. In order to create our second sketch, we need to create an offset plane. So I'm going to go into my 3D modeling tools, and I'm going to choose my plane command. Then I'm going to highlight that top plane that I have created, and I'm going to offset this a distance, the height of the cow catcher, which is 0.75. I'm going to click OK, my nice check there. And now I'm going to start a new sketch on that new plane, and I'm going to view the sketch normal to plane. And I'm going to, I just want to rotate this around a little bit. Whoop. Let me view normal to sketch plane. Oh, I have it upside down. View normal to sketch plane. Perfect. Hit the lock. Now, I am not going to draw my sketch right on top of this. I'm going to wait to constrain this later. I am going to draw in my second home plate looking object above, and then I'm going to constrain them in place. This is just going to allow me to keep it a little bit more organized. I'm not going to accidentally constrain something to a place that I don't want it to be constrained to. Speaking of constraints, I do want to make sure that these two lines are perpendicular because I did not draw them perpendicular. So I'm going to highlight both of them and then choose my perpendicular constraint. Nice. All right. So let's get into dimensioning this up. Our overall width, or from our left vertical line to our right vertical line, That is a distance of 1.2. And then our side edges are still that distance of 1.25. But what changes in this one is that we do not actually get a height for our sketch. Instead, we get an angle. So I'm going to select my two lines that are 0.25 and I'm going to set them equal to each other. If I want to fill in the 50-degree angle that we can see over here inside of this sketch, and there's that 50-degree right here for our top face, I need to have this construction line over here. So I'm going to go into OnShape and turn on this tool over here, Construction. With that selected, I can draw in a perfectly vertical line, and then I can throw in a dimension between this diagonal line to my construction line, set that to 50 degrees. With that in place, I can select both of my diagonal lines and set them equal to each other. Ooh, sketch could not be solved. And we'll see, maybe I had something snap into place. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to use that same construction line method over here and see if I have something overly constrained. One of the reasons that I moved it to the side was to avoid this, but we'll see. Ah, yes, it is overly constrained. And that might be a perpendicular constraint between these. I am going to delete that line. There we go. And now I can move this line, and it seems to be fine. So I'm going to draw in a new line. That might have been just where I had placed it. And now we'll try that equals, but I need to select both of the lines first. So I'll select this line, and hit equal. There we go. I just had an extra constraint. All right, so now I want these to line up on top of each other. In order to do that, I'm going to take a point, and I'm going to place a point at the midpoint of each of my drawings. When I try to place a midpoint over my original sketch, it's not going to allow me to place anything there because it has no reference. In order to quickly make a reference, what we're going to do, we're going to go into our sketching tools and pick out the use function. That's similar to project geometry inside of Autodesk Inventor. So with the use function, I'm going to highlight this bottom edge, bringing that into my sketch. It's real subtle, but it's now there. And now I can place a midpoint right there. Now that I have those two midpoints, I am going to highlight both of them. Highlight this one over here and highlight this one over here and throw in my favorite constraint of all time, coincident. Now they are constrained together and I can hit that check. I am going to view isometric, and you can see I now have these two sketches that are stacked on top of each other. Yes, I could have trimmed it up a little bit, but that's fine. Now I'm going to hit extrude. Oh, whoa, sorry, not extrude. I want to loft. I'm going to choose the loft command and choose the two sketches that I want. This sketch over here and this sketch over here. Lofting between them, I now have the base of my cow catcher. Cool. I'm going to go back over to my isometric view, and I'm going to turn off these planes that I have here. I don't need them anymore. Perfect. Cool. So we also have a hollow cow catcher. So we want to hollow this out. It's important that we do this step next, because otherwise we could really run into some issues trying to hollow parts once we have extra features added to them. So in order to do that, I'm going to go into my 3D modeling tools and use the shell command. The shell command, we want to not totally hollow something, but we want to remove a face. We want to remove this bottom face over here. So I'm going to select that, and it is now removed. And it's actually removed at the shell thickness that we want, which is 0.1 of an inch. So I'm going to hit check, and we're done with that. It was really easy to do, and now we kind of have like this Lego-like structure where it is mostly hollow on the inside. There we go. I'm going to go over to my isometric view, and now the next thing that we're going to do, we are going to add on these face plates because they're a little bit difficult. So if I want to draw in this face, I'm actually going to totally subtract out this rectangle. It doesn't look like it inside of the schematic, but if we look at the volumes when we're done, the closest way to get the closest to this number is to subtract it all the way through. Now, if I want to sketch on this face, I'm going to have some issues because of the loft. Sometimes when using lofts, weird things happen. But if I try to sketch on it, I can't. I can sketch on this top face, this side face over here, but I can't sketch on this face. So we're going to go into our 3D modeling commands, and we're going to create a plane, but not any kind of plane. We're going to choose a 3-point plane. Our 3-point plane is going to allow us to create a plane that is parallel to our lofted surface and then sketch on there. So I'm going to choose these 3 points on this face, and I'm going to hit a check mark. I now have this sketching plane that I can sketch on. So with that plane, I'm going to view normal to the sketch plane. I'm going to lock my rotation. I'm going to use that use command again, and I'm going to select each of my edges. There we go. And now I'm going to go again, and I'm going to select all those edges, and I'm going to offset them inwards. So with all those selected, go back into my sketching tools, choose offset. And we want to offset those inwards a distance of 0.1. There we go. I'm going to hit my check mark and go back to my isometric view so that I can see that when I go to extrude this, extrude, I want to choose this face right here. And I don't want a new face, I want to remove. So we're going to remove, and we don't want this to go all the way through, otherwise we're going to cut through our object. We're going to go at a depth of 0.2. Hit the check mark, and there we go. You can see it totally got subtracted out. I'm going to hit the check mark, turn off that sketching plane, and go back to my isometric view. Perfect. We now have that cut out, but we want to have it cut out on both sides. So we're going to do a little bit of a shortcut. We're going to use that plane command again. So inside of my 3D modeling tools, I'm going to choose plane, and this time we are going to choose a mid-plane. I'm going to choose this outside edge and this outside edge, and you can see it made a little plane in the middle, kind of looks like a mohawk over there. I'm going to hit the check mark, and now what that allows us to do is actually mirror a feature. So inside of my 3D modeling commands, I'm going to go over to mirror. With mirror selected, we don't want to choose a mirror type of part. The part that we're creating right now is a full part. We want to just mirror a feature. One of the features that we have is our extrusion. So I'm going to work inside of the model tree over here because it's a little bit easier to select these. I'm going to choose the extrude 1 as my feature, and then go down over to where it's orange on the side and select my mirror plane, and that should be plane 3. Now with those selected, I am going to hit my check mark, and you can see that both of those faces have been removed. Cool. I'm going to turn off that mid plane, and now the last thing that I have to do is to create those little pins that stick out of the back. So I'm going to choose a new sketch on this back face and view normal to that sketch plane. I'm going to draw in 3 circles. Each of these circles has a width of 0.125. So let's dimension those up. 0.125. Dimension this one at 0.125. And then our last one over here. Wow, it's pretty close on drawing that one, 0.125. All right, go back to my normal to plane. The bottom 2 are at a distance of 0.125 from the edge. We've got a lot of 1/8 of an inch dimensions. Cool. All right. Now, this point is 0.625 from our edge, I believe, or it's 0.5 maybe. Let me double check. Oh, it's 0.5. It is 0.5. So I'm going to turn off the dimension, double tap on my previous, and then hit the 0.5 to edit that dimension. Cool. Now, that top one, it is a distance of 0.6 from my top corner over here. Now, this OnShape automatically wants to do aligned dimensions, which I don't totally understand. So you need to click and drag on the dimension straight up so that we can hit in 0.6 as just a totally horizontal dimension. Then our distance between our two dots at the bottom, that is a distance of 1.25. And our distance between the center point of one of our top dot and one of our side dots, we need to click and drag this down again, that is the dimension that is 0.625. I knew it was somewhere. Cool, those are all lined up. I'm gonna hit my check, go back to my isometric view, and get ready to extrude those 3 features. So those we are adding, we want to extrude a depth of 0.125, and we're gonna hit the check mark. Now there is this little feature that is included on all of those. You can see right here, it's 0.1 typical. That means that it's got a chamfered edge, or an edge that if we were to zoom in on, has this little angled bit on it. So what that is saying is that it is 0.15, or this distance, over, or 0.01, my bad, 0.01 to that edge, and then it's 45 degrees. So essentially both edges are the same length. So inside of OnShape, I gotta go back in here over to Cowcatcher. Inside of OnShape, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to my 3D modeling tools, and I'm gonna choose Chamfer. It works similarly to fillet, so I'm gonna choose all the edges that I want, and equal distance is our chamfer type, and we're doing 0.01. With all those selected, I hit my check mark, and we're done. That's it. That looks great. I'm gonna go over to my scale for my mass properties, and then hit part 1. We got a measurement of 0.222. It's slightly, ever so slightly, 1/1000th of an inch off of our answer key, but it's close enough. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Talk to you later.